The sky was on fire when the ship fell. Smoke trailed behind it as it tore through the clouds. Trees bent and snapped as the metal bird crashed into the jungle. Birds scattered and the earth shook beneath the flames. Inside the wreckage, a man groaned. His name was Dane Keller, a human pilot and soldier. He pulled himself from the broken cockpit, blood on his face, one arm was badly cut, and his suit sparked near the shoulder. He looked around, breathing hard. Jungle sounds echoed in every direction. Insects buzzed. Unseen creatures moved through the leaves, but there were no voices, no rescue. Dane checked his comms. They were dead. No signal, no location, no command. He was alone. He grabbed a bag, a small blaster, and a med patch. He patched his wound, then started walking. His legs were sore, but he was alive. He followed a narrow animal path, hoping it led somewhere. Hours passed. The sun faded behind thick green branches. Night came. Fast in the jungle, Dane built a small fire near a rock wall. He didn't sleep much. Too many sounds, too much darkness. His hand never left his weapon. At dawn, he woke to silence, not even birds. That was never a good sign. He stood slowly and scanned the trees. Then he saw something, a small footprint. It wasn't human. It was light, clawed, and looked fresh. Someone or something had walked near his camp. He followed the tracks deeper into the forest. The air grew thick, and the trees pressed in closer. Then he heard its soft breathing, like a child hiding. He stopped, raised his blaster slowly. "Who's there?" he called. No answer. He moved closer. Behind a large root, he saw her, a small alien girl. Crouched low, her arms around her knees. She was no older than 10, maybe younger. Her skin was light blue with glowing white lines across her arms. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear. She wore no shoes, only a torn cloth wrapped around her shoulders. She looked at Dane like he was a monster. But she didn't run. He lowered his weapon slowly. "It's okay," he said, voice calm. "I won't hurt you." She didn't move. She didn't speak. Dane put his blaster down and sat on the ground a few feet away. No sudden moves. He opened his bag and took out a food bar. He broke it in half and placed one piece on a flat stone between them. He took a bite of his half, showing her it was safe. She stared at the food, her body shaking. Then slowly, very slowly, she crawled forward and grabbed it. She ate like she hadn't had food in days, maybe longer. "What's your name?" Dane asked. She didn't answer. "Do you have a home nearby?" Still silence. Dane sighed and leaned against the rock. He didn't know what to do. He was lost. And now he had a scared alien child with him. This planet wasn't safe, not for either of them. Hours passed. The girl stayed close, but never too close. She didn't speak. She watched him carefully, like a wild animal deciding if it could trust a human. That night, Dane lit another fire. He placed the second blanket he had on the ground and looked at her. She understood and curled up on it, small and quiet as the flames danced. Dane spoke. "My name's Dane," he said. "I was in a supply ship. Now it's just me." He didn't expect her to answer. But then, very softly, she whispered, "My name is Lyra." Dane turned, surprised. Her voice was tiny, like wind through leaves. "Hi, Lyra," he said gently. "Where is your family?" She looked at the fire, her eyes shining. Then she said the words that froze Dane's heart. "They killed everyone," she whispered. "They burned the village. I ran into the trees." Dane stared at her. "Who did?" he asked. She looked at him, her voice full of fear. "Your people." Dane felt like the fire had gone cold. He didn't speak for a long time. She had said it so simply, so quietly, like a truth she had accepted. "I'm sorry," Dane said finally. "I didn't." "No." Lyra nodded once, then turned away. She curled up tighter under the blanket. Dane sat back and looked at the stars through the jungle canopy. He had thought this was just a crash, just a survival mission, but now he knew this was something much bigger, and Lyra was at the center of it. The next morning, Dane woke up before the sun. The jungle was still dark, still quiet. Lyra was asleep beside the fire, wrapped in his extra blanket. Her breathing was soft, but her face was still tense, like she was dreaming of something bad. Dane stood up, stretching his sore back. His arm still ached, but he could move it now. He looked at the trees and the sky above. He had to make a plan. They couldn't stay here forever. The jungle was dangerous, and whoever destroyed Lyra's village might still be nearby. He needed answers, and maybe, just maybe, he needed to see the ruins for himself. When Lyra woke up, her eyes searched for him right away. He gave her a piece of dried fruit and some water. "We need to move," Dane said gently. "I want to find your village." She didn't speak, but her hands froze, her eyes looked down, and her fingers curled around the edge of the blanket. "I'll protect you," he said again. "I promise." After a moment, she nodded slowly. Then she stood up and pointed. "That way," she whispered. They walked through the thick trees. Branches scratched their arms, and bugs buzzed around their faces. Dane kept his blaster ready, eyes scanning for danger. Lyra walked behind him, quiet as a shadow. After 2 hours of walking, the jungle changed. The ground turned black, the trees broken and burned. Dane stepped over fallen logs and saw the first piece of metal. It was part of a building, melted from heat. He looked around. This was no natural fire. This was an attack. They walked deeper, and Lyra's steps slowed. Her eyes grew wide as she stared at what was left of her home. Stone homes reduced to ash, toys burned in the dirt. A broken cooking pot still holding dust. Lyra dropped to her knees and stared. "This was my mother's," she whispered. Picking up a half-melted bracelet, Dane felt a deep pain in his chest. He knelt beside her, not saying anything. Sometimes silence was the only right answer. He looked around, searching for clues. Then he found something strange, a piece of metal. Armor. He turned it over and saw a human military symbol. His heart sank. It was real. Lyra hadn't been wrong. Human soldiers had been here. But why? Why attack a small village of peaceful aliens? What did they want? Dane took the piece of armor and showed it to Lyra. Her face changed, not surprised, but sad. Like she already knew what he was going to show her. "They came with big ships," she said quietly. "First they smiled, then they shot. They said we had something dangerous." Dane sat down on a rock, confused and angry. He had been a soldier for years. He had followed orders, flown missions, trusted his leaders. But now, he didn't know what to believe. Lyra walked through the ruins. Touching burned walls and blackened trees, she stopped near a broken machine. "This was our healer's room," she said. "She tried to protect us." Dane looked at the machine. It was a mix of alien and human, tech advanced and rare. His eyes narrowed. "This isn't normal," he said. "This tech. It's not something a small village should have." Lyra looked at him. "We didn't build it," she whispered. "It was a gift." "From who?" Dane asked. But before she could answer, a low hum echoed in the air. Dane froze. He knew that. Sound drones. He grabbed Lyra and pulled her behind a wall. Through the trees, a small black drone flew past slowly. Its scanner lights swept the area, searching for heat, movement, life. Dane covered Lyra with his body and waited. The drone passed and disappeared into the jungle. "That was human tech," he whispered. "They're looking for us." Lyra looked up, eyes wide. "Are they coming to finish the job?" she asked. Dane shook his head. "Not if I can stop them." They moved quickly through the ruined village. He grabbed anything useful: wires, metal pieces, even a small energy cell. They had to be ready as they left the area. Lyra turned back. One last time, she looked at the ashes, the silence. the empty space where laughter once lived. "Goodbye," she whispered. Dane reached out and held her hand. Her small fingers wrapped around his. She didn't pull away. Back at the camp, Dane worked on a basic signal scrambler if more drones came. He could jam their sensors for a short time. It wasn't much, but it was something. As he worked, Lyra sat beside him. "You believe me now?" she said. "Yes," Dane replied. "I believe everything." She looked at him carefully. "Then why are you still helping me?" He paused, then answered, "Because you shouldn't be alone." She looked at the fire. Her voice was soft, almost broken. "Everyone else left me. I won't," Dane said. "You have my word." Night fell again. The jungle hummed around them, but this time, Lyra slept a little closer to the fire, and when Dane looked up at the stars, he didn't feel so lost anymore. He had a reason to keep going. He had someone to protect, and he would fight whatever came next. The night felt colder than before. The fire cracked quietly. But even its warmth couldn't chase away the fear. Dane stayed awake, watching the jungle beyond the trees. He felt it in his bones. Something was coming. Lyra slept close by, curled. Under the blanket, her breathing was slow, but her hands twitched like she was dreaming. Bad dreams, probably. She always looked afraid when she slept. Dane checked his weapon. Only one energy cell left. He tightened the strap of his gear and stood up. He needed more than just luck to protect her. In the early morning, they moved again. Deeper into the jungle, where the trees grew taller and the light barely touched the ground, they had to keep moving. They had to stay ahead of whoever was looking for them. "Where are we going?" Lyra asked softly. "There's an old outpost nearby," Dane said. "It was used during the First War, long before I joined, if we're lucky. It might still have power." Lyra didn't speak. She just followed. They reached the outpost. By noon, hidden behind thick vines and moss, it looked like a part of the jungle itself. Dane wiped the dust from the old metal door and entered. Inside, it smelled of rust and damp air. Broken chairs, shattered screens, and empty lockers greeted them, but something else was here too: data drives. Dozens of them, glowing faintly blue in the dark. Dane grabbed one and plugged it into a small scanner. The files were old, but one name stood out: Project Echo. He read quickly, eyes moving fast. As the screen flickered, his expression changed. "Lyra," he said, "come look at this." She stepped closer, curious. The file showed images of children, alien and human, experiments, DNA sequences, and glowing symbols. "This project," Dane said slowly, "it was a secret mission. They were trying to create peace. By combining alien and human DNA." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "My mother said I was born special," she whispered. "She never told me why." Dane turned the scanner toward her. The final line of the report made his stomach twist. Subject 17 shows signs of uncontrollable bioenergy if exposed to high stress. "That's you," Dane said. "You're Subject 17. Before Lyra could answer, a sharp alarm echoed from outside. Dane dropped the scanner and pulled her back. He looked through the cracked window. A black drone hovered outside. Its scanner blinked red. It had found them. "Run!" Dane shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand. They bolted out of the outpost, pushing through bushes and low branches behind them. The drone followed, its engine screaming louder. A red beam shot past Dane's head and hit a tree. The bark exploded in flames. He turned and fired once, just enough to damage its wing. The drone spun and crashed into the ground. But more were coming. He heard the hum in the sky. 3. Maybe for more, they had to hide. He saw a rocky hill nearby and led Lyra there. They squeezed into a tight cave under the stones. Dane placed his hand over Lyra's mouth, telling her to stay quiet. Above them, the shadows passed. A red light scanned the trees, but the drones didn't find them. Not yet. In the dark, Lyra trembled. Her skin began to glow soft blue light, pulsing like a heartbeat. Dane stared. Afraid it would give them away. Calm down, he whispered. Breathe. Stay with me. I can't stop it, she cried. It happens when I'm scared. Dane looked outside. The drones had paused, hovering close. The light was too bright. They would be seen, without thinking. Dane pulled her close. He wrapped both arms around her. You're not alone, he whispered. I'm here. I won't let anything hurt you. Her breathing slowed, the light faded, and the drones moved on. Minutes later, the forest was quiet again. Lyra looked up at him, eyes wide. You stopped it, she whispered. No, Dane said softly. You stopped it. They waited until sunset before moving again. This time, slower, safer. Lyra didn't let go of his hand. They made camp by a waterfall that night. The sound of water helped cover their presence. As Dane fixed the fire, Lyra sat beside him. I'm dangerous, she said. You saw it. You're powerful, Dane replied. But you're not dangerous, not if you have someone to guide you. She stared at the flames. Do you think they'll keep chasing us? Yes, Dane said. They want to erase you because you're proof. That peace is possible. Then why don't they want peace? She asked. Dane didn't know how to answer, so he just said, because peace scares people who only know war. Lyra leaned against him, tired and afraid. Will you leave me if it gets worse? He looked down at her, and without hesitation, said, never above them, stars began to appear, but so did shadows. The fight wasn't over, but tonight they had each other, and that meant hope still lived. The jungle felt heavier with each step. Dane and Lyra walked in silence, the trees closing around them like walls. Ow! Their shoes sank into the damp ground, their bodies tired from days of running. Dane kept looking back, not for the wildlife, but for the drones. They hadn't returned yet, but he knew it was only a matter of time. They needed answers. They needed help. And he knew only one person who might still give it. Where are we going now? Lyra asked softly. To someone who might tell us the truth, Dane said. She used to work on secret tech during the war. She disappeared years ago. If she's alive, she'll be at the ridge. The ridge was high above the jungle. Surrounded by cliffs and old machines, it took half the day to climb it. Lyra slipped once, but Dane caught her. He always caught her. At the top stood a broken tower, half covered in vines and moss. Dane knocked on the metal door 3 times. A small drone buzzed out from a hole, scanned his face, and flew away. Then the door creaked open. A woman stepped out. She was old, with silver hair and mechanical arms. One eye was human. The other was a red lens that clicked softly. Dane Keller, she said, not smiling. I thought you died in orbit, almost, Dane replied. But I brought a bigger problem than that. He moved aside so she could see Lyra. The old woman's lens focused. Her face changed surprise, then fear, then silence. Come in, she said. Stepping aside, inside. The place was filled with strange machines and blinking screens, books, tools, and energy cells lay scattered across tables. The woman motioned to a seat, and Lyra sat down slowly. What do you know about Project Echo? Dane asked. The woman, whose name was Dr. Marin, looked at him carefully. Enough to know that girl shouldn't be alive. She is, Dane said, and she saved my life. Dr. Marin looked at Lyra again. She's a hybrid, she said. Quietly, half alien, half human. Her blood holds encoded energy from both species. She was supposed to bring peace, Dane said, but now everyone wants her dead. Dr. Marin nodded slowly. The project was shut down by both governments, she said. They were afraid of what they made. Why? Lyra asked, her voice small. I never hurt anyone. You didn't, Marin replied. But what lives inside you? It's powerful. Your DNA can link with machines, heal injuries, even control tech with your mind. Lyra blinked. I didn't ask for that. I know, Marin said, but you're proof. Proof that peace could have worked. And proof that both sides lied. Dane stood and paced the room. So they tried to erase everything, he said, even the children. Marin nodded. Some were destroyed, she said. Others vanished. Maybe a few were hidden. By kind hands, Lyra looked down at her glowing arms. If I'm a danger? Maybe I should give up, she whispered. Dane knelt beside her. Don't say that, he said. You are not the danger. You're the hope. Marin walked over and placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. There's something I need to show you. She led them to another room, where a strange machine stood. It looked like a chair. Surrounded by lights and wires. Sit here, Marin said. I can scan your core energy. Lyra hesitated, then slowly sat down. The machine hummed, lights turning green on a screen. Patterns began to form circles, spirals, pulses. Marin stared at it in silence. Then she spoke, voice filled with awe. She's evolving, she said. She's not just a hybrid anymore. She's something new. What does that mean? Dane asked. It means, Marin said slowly, she could control entire systems. She could bring healing or destruction. She's like a living key. Dane looked at Lyra, who now seemed even smaller in the chair. She looked afraid not of them, but of herself. Marin turned off the machine and knelt in front of her. You don't have to be afraid of your power, she said. It's not about what you are. It's about what you choose to do with it. Suddenly, a loud alarm screamed through the base. Red lights flashed across the walls. Dane grabbed his blaster and ran to the main screen. Multiple dots were closing in drones, soldiers, and a gunship. They found us, he said. How? Your crash, Marin said. They probably traced your trail. Dane turned to Lyra. We have to run again. But Marin shook her head. There's no time, she said. But I have one escape pod hidden in the lower level. She walked to the wall and pulled a lever. A small door opened, revealing stairs going down. You two go, she said. I'll hold them off. Dane hesitated. But I've lived long enough, she said, smiling, but she deserves a future. Dane turned to Lyra and took her hand. Come on, he said. Let's finish what they tried to destroy as they ran down the stairs. Lyra looked back once. Marin gave her a small wave before closing the door. Moments later, the walls above shook with explosions, but the pod launched safely, shooting into the sky, carrying a soldier and a girl with the power to change the galaxy. The escape pod broke through the jungle clouds and flew high into the sky. Inside, Lyra sat close to Dane, holding his arm tightly. Her small fingers trembled, but she didn't cry. She had cried enough already. Dane reached over and checked the control screen. Power's good, he said. We'll reach orbit in 5 minutes. Then what? Lyra asked. Then we find someone who still believes in peace. Dane said, if anyone's left, the pod reached orbit. And stars appeared outside the window. A beeping sound echoed through the control panel. Incoming transmission. Dane pressed the screen. A man's face appeared, stern and familiar. It was Commander Trask. Dane's old squad leader, Dane Keller, Trask said. I thought you were dead. Almost, Dane replied. I need help, Commander, Trask's eyes moved slightly, as if scanning the pod. I see you're not alone, he said. Who is the girl? Dane paused. She's the reason I'm alive, he said. And maybe the reason the war could end. There was silence. Then Trask said, Doc, at Station Deltanine. You'll be safe there. The signal ended. Dane looked at Lyra. Do you trust him? She asked. I used to, Dane replied. But now? I'm not sure. They docked at Deltanine. It's a small space station floating near the planet's orbit. It looked quiet, but too quiet. No signals. No movement through the windows. 2 soldiers met them at the airlock. Both smiled, but their eyes were cold. This way, Lieutenant Keller, one said. The commander is waiting. Dane kept Lyra behind him as they walked through the halls. The lights flickered slightly, and the air smelled like metal. He noticed something else. There were no civilians, only soldiers. Trask stood in a control room. Arms behind his back, he looked at Dane, then at Lyra. She's smaller than I expected. He said, she's more than she looks. Dane replied. Trask smiled. That's what worries me. Dane narrowed his eyes. What's that supposed to mean? Trask walked over to a screen, showing data scans of Lyra. Project Echo, he said. Long buried, long forgotten, until now. You knew. Dane said slowly. I was part of it, Trask replied, and I was ordered to destroy it. Dane stepped forward. She's just a child, he said. She deserves protection, not death. Trask's voice turned cold. She's a weapon, he said, a living one. And weapons are dangerous when they think for themselves. Lyra moved closer to Dane, fear rising in her eyes. She hasn't hurt anyone, Dane said. She saved lives. Trask waved his hand, and more soldiers entered the room. This isn't personal, Dane, he said, but she's too powerful to be free. She'll be taken to a lab, for study, for control. No, Dane said, standing in front of Lyra. You'll have to go through me, Trask sighed. I was hoping you'd be smarter. The soldiers raised their weapons. Lyra's hands began to glow, her skin pulsing with soft blue light. But Dane turned to her. Don't, he said. Not yet. Lyra blinked, her glow dimming slightly. Suddenly, the control panel beeped. Unauthorized transmission detected. Trask frowned and turned to the screen. Another ship had entered orbit. Not a warship, but a peacekeeper vessel, neutral and powerful. A voice came through the intercom. This is Peacekeeper Orion. We know what you're hiding. Release the girl. Trask looked furious. They found you, he said to Dane. You called them? Dane smiled. I sent the signal before we docked, he said, just in case, outside. The Peacekeeper ship powered its weapons. The station shook slightly as shields went up. Trask turned to his men. Stand down, he ordered. This just became political. The soldiers hesitated, then lowered their weapons. Dane grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her toward the exit. But Trask called out, This isn't over. Dane stopped at the door. No, he said, it's just beginning. They boarded a small shuttle sent from the Peacekeeper ship. Inside, the crew welcomed them with calm, serious faces, no weapons pointed at them, no cages, just silence and understanding. Lyra sat down slowly, her hands still glowing faintly. Are we really safe now? She asked. Dane looked at her. I don't know, he said honestly, but we're one step closer. As the shuttle flew toward the Peacekeeper ship, Lyra stared out the window. She saw stars, bright and distant. For the first time, they looked beautiful, not because they were far, but because she was finally rising above the place where she had lost everything. The Peacekeeper ship moved quietly through space. Inside, everything felt calm, but Dane was not at ease. He had seen too much, heard too many lies. He knew peace was never easy. Lyra walked beside him in the quiet hall. She no longer looked like the scared child from the jungle. Her steps were stronger, her eyes clearer, but Dane could see the weight in her heart. They were taken to a room with clean walls and soft lights. A Peacekeeper officer stood there, tall and serious. Her name was Captain Thalia. She bowed slightly when she saw them. You are safe here, Thalia said. But not for long. Dane raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Thalia showed a map on the screen. Trask's forces had left the space station and were now moving toward Rain Spire, a hidden research base on a stormy planet below. They want to trap us there, Thalia explained. It's the last place They can control before the galaxy hears the truth. Dane clenched his fists. So it ends there. Thalia nodded. You will not be alone, she said. But if she is captured again, she will never be free. Lyra looked at the map. Quietly, her voice was soft but strong. Then I will fight. Dane turned to her, surprised. You don't have to, he said. We can hide, escape. Lyra shook her head. They will never stop, she said. Unless I stop running. Dane placed a hand on her shoulder. Then I'll be with you, he said, to the end. They landed on Rainspire 2 hours later. The sky was black, filled with rolling clouds. Rain poured from above, heavy and cold. The base stood like a tower of metal in the storm. Peacekeeper troops moved in with Dane and Lyra, but Trask's forces were already waiting. Shots fired in the distance. Explosions lit up the sky. Split up, Thalia ordered. We'll draw their fire. Get the girl to the core chamber. Dane held Lyra's hand as they ran through the broken hallways. The metal floor was slick, water dripping from every corner. Soldiers fought. In the shadows, their weapons flashing red and blue. One of Trask's men jumped out from behind a door. Dane fired without thinking. The man fell. Lyra looked away. Shaking slightly, I'm okay, she whispered, but Dane saw the fear in her eyes again. They reached the core chamber, a large room glowing with energy. This was the center of the old peace project. If Lyra linked with the system, she could release the full data to every network in the galaxy. Are you ready? Dane asked. Lyra nodded. She stepped onto the platform and placed her hand on the glowing panel. Her skin began to glow. Her hair lifted with energy. The lights in the room flickered. Then the door behind them opened. Trask stepped in, his face dark and wet with rain. He was alone but confident. Step away from the panel, he said, his gun pointed at Dane. You've caused enough trouble. Dane stepped in front of Lyra. Put the gun down. Commander, he said, it's over. Trask laughed coldly. No, he said. This was never about peace. It was about control. He fired. The shot hit Dane in the side. He fell to the ground, groaning. Dane. Lyra screamed. Her eyes burned with tears. Then they glowed bright and blue. The room filled with energy. Wind spun around her, pushing Trask back. His gun flew from his hands. The walls cracked with light. Lyra floated above the ground, the power inside her no longer hidden, but her heart was full of rage and pain. Stop. Dane gasped, reaching up. You're not like him? She looked down at him, breathing hard. Then her power slowed. The wind faded. Her feet touched the ground. Trask lay on the floor, shaking. Not from wounds, but from fear. Lyra walked over to Dane and helped him sit up. You stopped yourself, he whispered. You chose. She looked at him. No more running, she said. No more hiding. She walked back to the panel and placed both hands on it. Her glow spread through the wires, into the walls. Data flowed across the galaxy. Every lie, every file, every truth about Project Echo was released. Peacekeeper ships received it. Rebel networks shared it. The people began to see. Outside, the fighting slowed. Trask's men, hearing the truth, dropped their weapons. Some cried, some fell to their knees. They had followed orders, but now they saw the cost. Rain still fell, but the storm inside the girl was calm. Lyra turned to Dane. We're free, she said. Dane smiled through the pain. Yes, he said, because you are brave enough to fight without hate. The rain had stopped. Smoke still rose from the broken towers of Rainspire. But the battle was over. Silence filled the air like a blanket over the earth. Lyra sat beside Dane in the medical tent. He was pale, but breathing steady, a bandage covered the wound on his side. She had held his hand the entire time the doctors worked on him. You saved me again, Dane whispered. His voice was weak, but his eyes were full of life. You saved me first, Lyra said. You gave me your blanket, Dane. Smiled, you still remember that? I remember everything, she replied softly, outside the tent. The peacekeepers worked to clean up the ruins. Wounded soldiers were carried to ships. Weapons were collected, and drones were shut down. No more hiding, no more running. The truth was out. The world now knew what Project Echo had done. What it had tried to erase. A small alien girl with human blood had survived. And now she was more than a secret. She was a symbol. Thalia entered the tent, her uniform dirty, but her face? We're moving the injured to the main ship, she said. Both of you will come with us. Lyra nodded. Will we be safe? Thalia looked at her with kind eyes. You're not just safe, she said. You're protected. That night, the ship left Rainspire. Stars filled the window as they traveled through space. Lyra sat next to Dane, still holding his hand. She didn't let go, not even for a second. In the days that followed, news spread across planets. People watched footage of Lyra stopping the storm. They read the files she had released. They saw her not as a threat, but as hope. Messages came, from humans and aliens alike. Words like forgiveness, truth, and unity filled the screens. Even old enemies started speaking again, all because of a girl who had once whispered, "Everyone is gone." One morning, Dane sat up in bed. His strength was returning. Lyra brought him a small meal and sat beside him. "Where will you go now?" he asked. She looked out the window, then back at him. "I don't know," she said. "I don't have a home." Dane reached into his bag and pulled out a small photo. It showed a simple house on a quiet hill with trees and windmills. "This was my home," he said. Before the war, Lyra stared at the picture. "It's beautiful." She said, "It still exists." Dane said, "I left it empty when I joined the army." "No one's been there in years." He looked at her. "Would you like to come with me?" Her eyes widened. "You mean? Live there?" "Yeah." Dane nodded. "Not as a soldier, not as a subject, just as Lyra." She smiled, her small hand wrapping around his again. "I'd like that." Weeks later, they stood on green hills under a blue sky. The house was old, but still strong. Birds sang in the trees, and wind moved through tall grass. Lyra explored every corner, laughing when she found a small swing in the back. Dane watched her from the porch, smiling with every step she took. That evening, they sat by a fire again, not in a jungle, not in a cave, but on soft grass under stars. "I was alone for so long," Lyra said. "I thought I didn't belong anywhere." Dane looked at her. "You belong here now," he said. "With me." She leaned against his shoulder, her voice soft. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "I never could," he said. "You were worth saving." Far above them, the stars shined quietly. No ships chased them. No drones searched, just peace, and under that calm sky, a soldier and a little girl started their new life. No more running, no more whispers of fear. Only the wind, the stars, and the soft words she had never heard before. "You're home now," Dane said, "and you're never going to be alone again."